Hey guys, and welcome to episode number 4 of the Q&A Monday questions with Richard Terborg. Today we have, I think it's 3 or 4 questions, but they're really in-depth and kind of long and interesting. So I thought, let's give it a go. Let's see what we got. Let's see. Today I have, what if the model is not able to express the proper emotion, even after putting her all in the fantasy dress and in the fantasy setting? How do you get like that emotion out of your models? Well, it's a kind of two-part question. It's kind of a two-part thingy at least, because there's a couple of ways of looking at this. For one, I try to cast my models for the type. So when I need to shoot something, when I need to photograph something in a setting, let's say a woods queen. So like we have the woods and we need like a little queen that emotes in the woods or lives in the woods, and she has all these little frogs as demons. So let's say we have that queen. I would, when casting a model for that shoot, I would go through my Facebook page, through my model pages, through modeling agencies, and try to find a girl who has the natural expression I'm looking for, which means that her natural expression, her natural face, already fits in that type of setting, in that type of scene. By that, which means that if I put her there, I know she would be able to emote it because that's her regular expression. So for most of my shoots, that's how I try to go about at least getting rid of people that don't fit inside the scene. I try to figure out who will fit. Is the emotion that I want already in their portfolio? Do I see it? If I don't see it, I go to the next until I find that emotion. Now I do know you don't always have the luxury to find a model like that, or at least sometimes you just gotta make do with what you get. What I do then, I explain at least what the setting is like, what the emotion is I would like to tell in the story. And this is something I've noticed men having more problems with than women. Women have an easier way of communicating with women in general and explaining what type of emotion they would want from their character or from the person they're photographing. I've noticed with men photographers, they have a little bit more problem telling the emotion they want. They more have, what they usually have is like a mood board with a few of images, and they say like, I need like this type of style of expression, but then they can't really convince the model how to emote or what they need to emote. And so there's a difference there, at least in photography. But how I try to do it is, one, I try to figure out a mood board. So I make a mood board with only expressions, not whole settings and everything else, stating like, I need this type of expression, I need this type of feel. If that doesn't work out, you sometimes have a model who should be able to perform that doesn't perform. Sometimes there's something wrong. And it could be anything, right? It could be family business yesterday, or somebody just sending her a message that didn't really quite feel well. Might be that the makeup artist maybe poked her in the eye, or maybe the way I communicate isn't really how she is used to being talked to. So there might be something with the model that doesn't really sit right. And if that happens, I usually just, when I see that happening, that she can't perform or something isn't wrong, I try to take like a little break. So we might just hang out on the couch, talk a little bit, or go out for some tea, like leave the whole studio setting. I might just, take it easy, take a break, and just let her get into a comfort zone. Maybe let her talk it out. Maybe, in a few minutes into the break, she'll go like, oh, and this happened yesterday and blah, blah, blah. So you try to get it out. And then as soon as it's out, you can take her back on stage, go back to the photography and try to get the emotion, or at least the setting you would want from it. Now there's another part as well, and I especially have this when I need my models or the character I'm playing with to like scream or really be angry, like the really the really big screams. Pretty much everybody has a problem doing that. Not everybody has a problem doing that, but the most models I've shot had a problem getting into that mindset. An easy way to do it is I put my camera on a tripod. I frame my camera right on the model so that when the picture is taken, it's exactly tight to my model, or at least I know what my edges of my frame are. And I put my camera on remote. I take a little remote in my hand, and I stand right next to the model. So we're both standing looking at the camera, and we're both going to go express this emotion. So I say, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then we're both going to like scream towards the camera. I stand next to my model. I go 1, 2, 3, scream, and then I click the button, which means that when I click the button, she emotes. We emote together, so she's not alone. She doesn't feel that she's the only one doing it. It doesn't feel like a little bit weird. It feels more comfortable doing it with somebody else, and you'll even laugh and have a little joke about it. So, and that way, when I take the picture, she's been framed and I shot it. So that's how I pretty much try to cheat my way through getting expressions and getting the emotions that, if they can't really perform or can't really say what they want. I hope this kind of answers my questions. I got this question. I figured I'm gonna say whoever sent me in the question. So this question came in from Fai Sel. I'll put his name somewhere down there in the comments. Thank you for this question. I really found it interesting, especially on how do you get them to do what you want to do, even if you're not that experienced. And it's a hard thing. It really takes practice. It really takes time to get somebody comfortable enough to get them to do whatever you want to do. But in the end, I have never had any problem getting people to do what I want them to do, because I'm usually the more crazy one, and you can't do anything that's crazier than me. So asking them to do something, they'll gladly just jump in and do all the crazy shit, because I'm more crazier than jumping around. So there might really be that. Fai Sel even flipped the question, and he said, what if it's the other way around? What if a photographer has an experienced model, but the photographer is unable to capture this model in a nice way, in a good way for the model, her portfolio. For me, this is a little bit easier, because if the photographer can get the pictures from the professional model, the problem usually lies at the photographer. This all depends, like what's the how you say that? What's the contract or the agreement that you have with your model when you're shooting her? Because when I teach workshops, I try to teach new photographers or people new to the business how they should work, how they should post models, how they should, Photoshop, things like that. And I know these people aren't experienced in photographing models. So I tell my models this as well. I tell them, we're going to do a workshop. We're going to get photographers that aren't that experienced. I'm going to try and get them to shoot my type of images and my type of quality, but I can't promise you this. So that's why I will pay you or whatever to stand there and do your thing and not expect anything great or fantastic. And that's when I see this a lot, where people, at least photographers that aren't that experienced, shooting models that are really experienced and not getting the pictures that are quite there. If this happens, I would just maybe call it not a waste, but more like a learning experience. It's been a learning experience to work with somebody like that. You can go home, you can reflect, and you can look at your own images and figure out why it didn't come out the way you wanted it to. Maybe it's Photoshop, maybe it's lighting, maybe it's posing, maybe it's in the emotion. What did go wrong? Why you had like a professional model and you couldn't get the shots you wanted from them. And when I figured that out, I go out, I reshoot it, and I try to, get that emotion there the second time around. A lot of people I've noticed in photography think when they shoot somebody, they're going to shoot somebody for the first and the last time. So they really have this eagerness of shooting it, getting it done. And when they get home, it's not there. They're kind of like, it's a waste. On to the next shoot. Me, personally, I have reshot a lot of my shoots. That I've shot something with my model, it looked great, but I was missing something. I would go a week after, a month after, go at it again, maybe with a different model, maybe with a different team, maybe with a different style. I would just go at it again, try it again, see what we get. And maybe the second time it will be a lot better because everybody's a little bit more comfortable with each other. Maybe the second time it will go better because we switched up the team or anything else, things like that. So I don't see one shoot as a final end-all shoot. Every shoot for me is pretty much a learning experience, even though I got to deliver. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I got to go back, I got to reflect, I got to shoot it again. Things like that. All in this to figure out how to get where you want to in the photography. So I hope this kind of answered your question. Let's see. There was like 3 questions into one, but I think we got there. I have another one, which is... would it be better to have assignments in photography and working all day? Or would it be better to photograph as a hobby whenever you can? This question came from Alie, which is awesome. Thank you, Alie, for the question. This is a hard one because shooting assignments for me isn't necessarily shooting something you don't want. So a lot of my assignments are give me the freedom to shoot how I want to shoot it. So a lot of assignments give me and it's because of that freedom at least. I don't see shooting every day or shooting for assignments or shooting for big gigs as a strain on my creativity. At least it's not a strain on my creativity. It's more of a strain on the mind because you're constantly producing, constantly having to push the boundaries, constantly having to think creative. So in that way, it's a very it's not really off-putting. It's more tiring. It's a more tiring process to keep pushing yourself every day to be very creative because creativity doesn't really come every day. Sometimes it falls today, sometimes it falls tomorrow. Sometimes you have like a week of creativity inspiration burst where you get like a lot of images, a lot of creativity in your head and you can really go. Other times you really have to work at it to get something creative out of yourself. So in that regard, I would say if you don't mind that strain and tiredness on yourself, if it doesn't really burn you out or bring you down, if you have to constantly work, because I don't have that problem. I have no problem working every day and shooting every day on assignments and keeping everything fresh and trying to keep moving and things like that. If you don't have a problem with that, it's awesome to do it. It's a whole lot of hard work, but you get a lot back, and you'll be able to plan your own time and do your own thing. So that's interesting. Versus doing it as a hobby, where you'll always have the creative freedom. You can shoot whenever you want. You can shoot whatever you want. But again, doing it as a hobby, you won't have the time that you have when doing it for yourself, more as an assignment gig or things like that. With assignments, you get the money and you get the time to think about it, to figure it out, to do the shoot. If you do it as a hobby, you usually have like a job next to it, which takes up a percentage of your time, which means you always feel like you don't have enough time to shoot for your photography. So it's like a yin yang balance thingy. Both have their perks, both have their pluses and their minuses. One is more fun because you'll always have the creative freedom for yourself and do whatever you want and shoot how many times you want. The other one has a little bit more structural, regular basis, as when you just have to shoot every day or shoot a clothing line every day. You can't always be creative. Sometimes you got to push the creativity, but it will have a little bit more, a little bit more love coming back, at least from the clients or from the people you're working with, versus when you do it as a hobby and a more learning experience. I've said to a lot of people, keep it as a hobby, keep it as something fun, something you could do whenever you want. Other people that I know had that drive to work or have that drive to push themselves. I've told them do it as do it in assignment basis, do it full time, do it things like that, because it will be a lot more easier and funner to do it like that. It really depends on the character of a person if you got to keep it as a hobby or do it full time. So it's really hard to pinpoint one thing exactly. For me, I was happy doing it on assignments because, like I said, on assignments I am able to like push my creativity as well and do things like that. Well, there we go. We had like, I think 3 or 4 questions, some merged into one. I'll be here again next week. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments or drop them on my Facebook, send me an email, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I'll see you again next week with some more questions. Bye.